Okay, once again, let's do a little bit of a recap as to what we've gone through so far in the first two levels of forgiveness. The first level is this idea that God is constantly supplying energy to human beings, even when they use that energy contrary to God's will. God nevertheless continues to supply this, and this is a tremendous level of forgiveness. The Ramak, the author of the Tomer Devorah, says that this is like the insulted king at work because he ignores the insult to his person, that we abuse the energy that we get from God. The second level goes even further and talks about the fact that our misdeeds create these negative energy beings that also require sustenance and also require this influx of energy. And God also, as it were, foots the bill for those energy drains as well and doesn't send them back to collect energy from us. He gives us a chance to address our own wrongdoings and to cause that energy debt to be paid of our own regard. Now, on the third level, this is where God is not only being forbearing, that is, tolerating sin. Now, this is where he starts to actively be involved in the forgiveness, the cleansing process. And this is something, as we shall see, we can also draw into our own lives because, as I've emphasized in the last few lectures, Tomer Devorah really is a pragmatic work that's designed for actually implementing into our lives. So the third level deals with this concept of washing away of the sins. The Tomer Devorah adopts a Kabbalistic approach which depends on the structure of four distinct worlds that are beyond the scope of our discussion here. But there are different creatures that are allowed to affect different worlds. Angels, as it were, do not have the power to forgive sin. That's something that is reserved for God alone. Angels are not created in a high enough world of these four worlds to be able to remove the effects of sin. Only God, as it were, can personally intervene and forgive sin. Now, this is something of an exception to the general operation of the universe, as Rabbi Kordovor explains elsewhere in his Kabbalistic works. Normally, God sends out an incredible number, myriads upon myriads of angels who direct the functioning of the world as a whole, but there are certain key things that God, as it were, reserves for his personal involvement rather than through the various energies that he sends out to affect these things. I know that gets all kind of weird and it's way above my own understanding of these things, so I'm just sort of saying words that I've read without really deeply understanding them. But if you'll forgive my own ignorance, let's understand how this applies specifically to forgiveness. So in this third level, God is compared in Tomer Devorah to a very, very powerful image, a human image that is of a parent washing away the filth off a child. Many of the commentaries really speak about this at great length because all of us have, as human beings, we have experienced this to one degree or another. The word that's used in the quotation that the Rabbi Cordovero chooses is the Tzoat Benot Zion, which literally means the excrement of the daughters of Zion, that God will wash away the filth of the daughters of Zion in, the most human sense of the term filth. And this is something that we as human beings have all experienced in one way or another, in that, when we were children, before we were toilet trained, there was a parent or a caregiver who was able to step in and clean us up. And many of us who have aged parents also understand what it's like to do the same in return for a parent. It is an act of tremendous love and kindness, and also it's an act of phenomenal forgiveness because one cares for the person so much that one will be, I'm putting this all in the word one, that we are willing to, forgo our own honor in order to benefit this person who really needs to be cleaned up. So God, as it were, forgives human sin at this level. God doesn't send out a messenger or send out an employee saying, "Here, would you please clean up this terrible mess here?" God, as it were, personally gets involved and takes care of it. And this is a very, very high level of forgiveness. And this is why what the Tomer Dvor is trying to say as well here is that we should emulate this in our own interpersonal relationships. For example, when we see that someone around us has caused us some sort of harm, we shouldn't say, well, that's their problem. They've made this mess. Let them clean it up. Now it is true. It's their mess and they've got to clean it up. But ultimately, a higher level of forgiveness is when we step in and we say, you know what? For whatever reason, they're just not ready to clean it up themselves. They're not capable of understanding what they've done wrong. They're not capable of doing the actual technical cleaning up of the mess. So we should step in and take care of it for them. That's a very high level of forgiveness. Now, I'll share with you a personal vignette that it's kind of a small family tradition that was not very hard for me to do at all, but it was a way to express my love for my wife in such a way that I think it's really, we joke about it, but it's a good thing for our family. When we were living in Israel many years ago and we were studying in yeshiva and in seminary, we were living this fourth-story walk-up in the old Katamon neighborhood of Jerusalem, and it had this really beautiful terrazzo floor, which is like a really hard stone floor. And my wife was working in the kitchen. It was a Friday afternoon, and she was working in the kitchen, and she had this big glass bottle of grape juice that we were using for Kiddush that night. And as these things happen, it slipped from her hand, smashed on the terrazzo floor, and there was like grape juice everywhere. And that time of the week when we're just trying to get everything ready and we're on a deadline, it's going to be candlelighting soon, it's going to be a very frustrating time, and my wife was just kind of like, oh my gosh. But, here I was newly married. Well, I was married about a year and a half or so, and I stepped in. I was the big hero, and I said, don't worry, I'll clean it up. It's very big of me, I know. But at that point, I did clean it up, and she was so appreciative over such a small thing. She was so appreciative that it sort of evolved from then on, that whenever there is that kind of an event, a spill, especially involving breaking glass, and I'm around, it's my job to clean it up. And I view it as a tremendous privilege to be able to do that, especially because there are a lot of things that she does for me that I'm not even going to list here, but she's constantly doing the same kind of things for me. So there's something that's deeply ennobling on the one hand about stepping in and forgiving the other. In this particular example, obviously there's no sin involved in breaking a glass, but the metaphor is, a person makes a mess. You don't say, hey, you clean it up, your mess. Step in there and do the right thing and clean it up for them. So there's something very deeply ennobling about the person who steps in to do that, but at the same time, especially if you think of this in terms of a child-parent relationship, there is a huge deterrent to sin as well. Because if I know that, like, let's say, for example, we go back to the metaphor of a child that soiled himself and has to go to his mother for cleaning. If I know that I let my parents down and I soil myself, and I go to my mother and I need her assistance, she'll do it for me because she loves me and she cares for me. But on the other hand, I'm humiliated. I'm a big boy now. I should really not do these kinds of things. It's hard. So it's like a deterrent. It makes us feel we really shouldn't sin because our parent is the one who's going to be cleaning us up. And we really don't want to subject our parent, whom we love, to that kind of behavior. How much more so when the parent is God in his glory. God himself will come down and actually engage in the cleanup process. So this is, a very, very pragmatic level of forgiveness. It's a level that we have to work up to say, okay, I know I'm not responsible for this mess, but I want to do the right thing, and I want to go in there and I want to help take care of the mess. By the way, this is also really very useful with children. We have, thank God, 6 children at home. Well, they're not all at home, but we have 6 children, and so often when there is something that goes wrong, the very first thing the kid says is, I didn't make that mess, go check out my sibling over there. That person should take care of it. But that's not the point. The point is that we should all chip in together, and when we have strengths, we should lend those to others to help them take care of their messes. Again, this can be abused, but the goal here is to develop ourselves and to develop that muscle of forgiveness. So we see that this third level of forgiveness has a very pragmatic and human element to it. But let me take it back to this idea that I mentioned earlier, that the angels themselves are unable to do this. There are some elements of forgiveness that you simply cannot delegate these things out. You have to take care of them yourself. And one of the metaphors that I've seen in my own life is the fact that we have at home a laptop that many members of the family have their own profiles on, their own logins, and they can use this laptop. And every now and then, one of the kids will download something or will play some kind of crazy game on the internet, and bang, we'll get some kind of virus and things like that. And all of a sudden, the computer's all jammed up, and what are you going to do about it? So, that's when they come to me, because I am the only administrator of the computer. I have the administrator password, and I can go in there and I can wipe everything clean. And I can say, we're going to start all over again. And that's the same kind of idea here with God. That God, as it were, has the ultimate administrator password, that no matter how badly we mess things up, it is within God's power and God's alone to go and just enter that password and say, go back to an earlier state in the time machine, so to speak, and make it all right again. So we have to realize that we have that power as well with our interpersonal relationships, and there are times when we should bring that to bear. Okay, so that's the third level of forgiveness, and I hope you'll join us for the fourth level as well. Thank you.